All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call to order the August 19th, 2021 Zoning Board of Appeals meeting. Welcome. My name's Anthony Bucari. I'm the chairman of the Zoning Board, and I think you all know Susan Harrison, who's been on the board for a while now. As you can see, we have two new members. Some of you who are here before us a lot know we've been running a little light for a little while. So I'd like to introduce them both. Could you just give your name for everyone? And
I'm Chris Karsha.
Justin Marks.
And they were both appointed last month, I believe, or at the beginning of this month, maybe. And we are very happy to have them. For some of our applicants and councils and engineers, you might see me ask a few more questions tonight or a few more clarifying items. I'm going to try to help to bring these folks up to speed as quickly as possible. I know past chairs did that for me when I was joining, and I found it useful. We are going to skip to the end quickly. Item 3 on our agenda, we have some additional business for property at 47 Town Way. Attorney DeLisi wrote into the board requesting an extension of the special permit for some extenuating circumstances. I don't know if everyone heard there was a small pandemic, which may or may not be gone. So I think we all were able to review your letter. If you have anything else to add.
No, I just wanted to welcome the new members. I'm a lawyer that frequently is in front of the board, and I look forward to working with you guys. As far as the letter is concerned, under the zoning bylaw, special permits are limited to 2 years if they're not substantially commenced. And in this case, there was a permit from almost 2 years ago that required a separate permit that took us 15 months to get. So we're a little behind, and so I'm asking for a 1-year extension.
So just typically in terms of my tenure on the board, which I guess has been a little while now, it is relatively rare, other than just almost a total lack of pursuing the relief that they got from us, that we wouldn't grant an applicant an extension. I mean, we'd like to hear a reason. Obviously, some of the permitting took longer than expected, and obviously there have been extenuating circumstances going on in the world. And so I don't have any questions, and I would obviously be inclined to grant the extension. Susan, do you have anything to add on that one?
I have nothing to add, agree.
Nothing else? Bob, any concerns or questions here?
None.
All right, then I would make a motion to grant an extension of the special permit for 47 Town Way in Scituate and extend the expiration of that permit until October 3rd of 2022.
Second.
Susan seconds. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
The ayes have it. Thank you. Jeff, in your opinion, do we need to write a decision on this?
In my opinion, no, but I'm going to do it belt and suspenders and
Okay.
report it, okay?
Sure.
So I'll send it over to you guys.
That sounds great.
Yeah, okay?
Yep.
Hi, Janine.
Hi, how you doing?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
With that, we are going to double back to our first application brought by Heather and Stephen Marshall of 17 Nelson Road in Scituate, requesting a special permit or finding in accordance with MGL 40A Section 6 and Section 810.2 of the bylaw, and or any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the raising and reconstruction of a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 17 Nelson Road. Welcome.
Thank you. My name's Heather Marshall. I am the owner of 17 Nelson Road. I'm here representing my husband and I to raise and reconstruct our single-family home. We are rebuilding it exactly in the same footprint as the existing home. The existing home is a bungalow built in 1925. The foundation is just post on concrete piers, so it's not significant enough to put a renovation, the second floor on the structure. So it was recommended by our builder to rebuild and put a proper foundation. So that's why we're here.
All right, so entirely on the existing footprint, I guess we should say,
Yeah,
as the
footprint.
foundation is going to change, that we're seeing on this 2021 plan that we have, and really no changes whatsoever. Where is so the access is out to Nelson Road, is it just off so there isn't a garage, we're just... So
Not enough
no-
room, there's not enough room on the property for a
Right.
garage.
And so no changes to the other locations on the site, access is same,
Access is the same.
we're just adding a level, and we sort of have to start from scratch in order to
Yep,
do
we're putting
that.
in a new foundation and then putting if you count the walkout basement, we're lifting it, so it's a 3-story.
Right. And then 1350 to 3134, I see 232% increase. Is that maybe a 132% increase?
Yes.
And then
Yes.
there you,
The math
okay.
is wrong on that.
That's fine. I just wanted to, it's wrong in
Yes,
a
on the
way that
paper.
makes sense.
Yes.
So
Yes.
just wanted to confirm that. So we have a 132% increase. And so you are, of course, here under the bylaw, Bob, and Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, the building department could grant a special permit for something such as this if we were under 20% increase, is that right?
Yes, I think we could do that if it were under 20%.
Right. This obviously isn't. We have a significant increase, and the question before us is really limited to whether or not this increase is substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. I would be of the opinion that putting a second floor on an existing home in the same footprint, that's probably unlikely, but, so I guess needless to say, I don't think I have any further questions. Bob, do you have anything to add? We're gonna go to you first.
No, not really. Heather, I think you've probably spoken to the Conservation Commission,
Yep, we're already approved and filed.
so that would be my only comment.
Fantastic. Susan?
Nothing, except there is an existing, no garage, but there's existing studio, nothing's going on with that.
Nope,
right?
it's
Okay.
already built and it's like a shed.
Okay. Nope, no other questions?
Any questions? All right.
I'm good.
Okay. With that, I'll make a motion that the board approve the special permit request for the raising and reconstruction of the home on 17 Nelson Road in Scituate to be constructed in accordance with the application and in the same footprint as shown on the plan prepared by James McGrath and dated January 10th, 2021. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any public comments?
Oh, you know
Oh,
what?
shoot,
That's a
we
good
forgot
idea,
that.
sorry. We would like to hear from the public first, and you've certainly earned the right to go first.
So I'm Eric Albert, 15 Nelson Road.
Thank you.
Direct about it to Heather and Steve. Just want to say, first and foremost, we're not opposed to this project at all. It's going to be a betterment to the neighborhood, and more than likely will increase all our value for our homes. So we're very happy that the project's going to happen. However, I do have some concerns.
Sure.
The house is 2 foot off the property line. Heather and I have met twice, Heather, and we've discussed it, but we haven't moved forward with how you plan on building this. So that's the concern that I have. Do you know if you're going to have to come on the property or not?
Yeah, so we actually prepared, my husband is in the industry, so he prepared a nice little logistics plan. Give that to you.
Okay, so why is this the first one I've seen?
He just did it like this week. This week, like as of 2 days ago.
Would we be able to
Oh,
take
yeah,
a quick look at one of those?
Absolutely. So it is 2 feet off the property line. There is an existing stone border that actually is 4 feet from the line, but 2 of those feet are his property.
Sure.
We've
The stones, just to be clear, right, the stones are on?
Yeah, they're yours. Yep, but it's 4 feet from our house to the stone. And the reason why I mention that is because we have talked to our excavator and we've talked to our contractor. And this is why it took a little bit, because we wanted to make sure that we had our dimensions right. The excavator has confirmed that he only needs that 2 feet to dig, so he'll dig right up to our property line. And because we're actually going to be trying to do this in January, the ground's going to be pretty firm, so he doesn't feel like that's an issue. In addition to doing that, he's going to drive steel plates at the 2-foot line so that we're not excavating any further into the neighbor's yard, and that we're shoring that from erosion. In addition to that, we have a business plan. We're proposing, this is obviously with approval to Eric, is that we would like to put up a temp fence, just way that none of the construction debris goes onto their property, and it keeps the scaffolding on the inside. The scaffolding is about 3 feet wide, so we will be touching his property for 1 foot, so we do need approval from him to do that.
Okay.
But we would be staying within that existing stone, even though it is your property, we're staying within that buffer.
So 3 foot wide scaffolding off the house, that's a foot in.
But a foot onto your property, yes.
And the fence is gonna be how far?
It can be to 4 feet, right at that rock wall, but that's up to you.
Okay, so I've been in touch with my attorney as well. I've drawn up a site access agreement, and you and all your contractors will have to abide by it. And I did copy that to you. I'm sure the town has addressed zero clearance building before.
We have, I think, Bob, again, feel free to chime in. There's sort of, we're here now for the zoning relief that they need.
Sure.
What we're talking about, well, it is perfectly reasonable to talk now, it's the best forum for it, and I completely understand your concerns. At the end of the day, that's a private property line. So that is between the two of you, the two landowners in question, and the town doesn't so much have purview over that necessarily.
Okay. Bob, there's nothing on the building regulations?
There's nothing in the building code. It's really a civil matter, but as a matter of course, if you've got an agreement drawn up, we'd want that filed with the building permit application.
Okay. All right, so Heather and I will have to talk, and we'll get together and we'll get it figured out. And again, Heather, we want you to build the house, you know we want you to build
I
the
know.
house. So we just have concerns.
Certainly.
Not property.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yeah. And to clarify, the granting of a permit like this in no way gives an applicant
Right.
the right to conduct construction activities beyond their property
Correct.
lines. So, someone, if that was prohibited by an abutter, it would be a trespass, and no one could use their special permit as a defense for that. Do we have anyone else from the audience that has any questions or comments on 17 Nelson? All right, then we have a motion that has been seconded. I think we'll conduct our vote on that. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the ayes have it. Janine, I can take that one.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. All right, we're going to move to our second application brought by Allison Sheeran of 48 Captain Pierce Road in Scituate, requesting a special permit or finding in accordance with MGL 48, Section 6 and Section 610.2B of the bylaw, and any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to modify lot lines approved by the Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals via a special permit on November 15th of 2018. Good evening.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Gregory Morse. I'm a registered engineer with Morse Engineering here in Scituate, representing the property owner and applicant, Allison Sheeran. The reason why we're before you is the subject property, 48 Captain Pierce Road, was issued a special permit by this board back in 2018 to create the lot. The lot is what's referred to as a 50-foot frontage lot in our section 410.2B. It's a lot that has twice the minimum land area, has half of the required frontage. So this lot here, referring to my plan, is shown as Lot 1. It has 50 feet of frontage at this location on Captain Pierce Road. The lot area itself being 42,025 square feet. The zoning board issued a special permit for construction of this home. This home was constructed in 2019. What puts us before you tonight is the applicant would like to change the lot lines on this. They're proposing to do a one-to-one land swap with the direct abutter, Chris Ford of Lot 2. Lot 2 is a fully compliant lot. But because Lot 1 is subject to a special permit, we need to modify that special permit to reference the new lot line. So you'll see here that parcel A, which is 600 square feet in size, would be conveyed from Mr. Ford to Ms. Sheeran. And in return, parcel B would be conveyed from Ms. Sheeran to Mr. Ford. It's a one-to-one land swap that does not affect the land area of the special permit lot, and it does not affect the frontage. Everything complies as far as zoning setbacks. We're just seeking that modification.
Greg, I really don't have any questions with the one-to-one swap, and it doesn't make much of a difference in terms of the layout. It doesn't affect access, which is always a question we have on these lots, trying to minimize the curb cuts. Seems like it's logistics, and you're coming here to us because we approved the layout of these lots initially, and I think I agree that for better or worse, you gotta come back to us if you want to change them. Susan?
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
Yeah. Bob, anything we should be thinking of here?
No, I don't think so.
Anything else? Please.
It would just be, why were they drawn that way to begin with? Was it to accommodate something that no longer exists, or something that had to do with subdividing that lot?
So originally, what I've highlighted in bold there is the straight line that was the previous lot line, or the current lot line.
Right.
During the construction of this house, there was we'll call it an ancient stone wall that existed right here.
Yep.
And when the house was constructed, Ms. Sheeran believed that she owned that stone wall, or that stone wall was the lot line, and so they rebuilt it very nicely. That stone wall actually is on Mr. Ford's property, and we show it on the plan there, you'll see it. And so it was rebuilt on Mr. Ford's property. This just fixes that error.
Sure. All right, and then the jut out, so parcel B is what is necessary to compensate for the lost square
Right.
footage to lot 2.
Correct.
I got you. Anything else?
I'm good.
All right. Do we have any questions from the public on the 48 Captain Pierce Road application? Yes, sir.
Not going to be a question, but I'm the abutter, Chris Ford. And we are supportive of the initiative. And I just want to point out the benefit, another benefit for us is it gives us a little more room to save this bond, which is on the abutting property. And the extra 10 feet that we're picking up provides a setback relief, which makes it, better to, and Bob will be coming in with an application to move the bond shortly, but we're waiting for this procedure to get by us. So
Good.
we have the new lot line.
Hopefully, it's been surveyed and has been deemed worth moving and able to be moved.
Well, we've had a lot of, we have a lot of input on that.
Okay, good. Good.
As long as you sit down and help us slide it over.
I'll cheer you on.
Thank you. Anyone else? 48 Captain Pierce? No. All right. Do we have a motion? Susan? Want this?
Which one is this? Make a motion to approve a special permit finding in accordance with MGL Chapter 40A, Section 6, and 610.2B of Scituate zoning bylaw, and/or any relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to modify the lot lines approved by the Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals on November 15th, 2018, to the lot lines on the survey dated July 14, 2021.
I'll second. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Wonderful. The ayes have it. Thank you.
Want me to do that one?
Sure,
Or-
thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Here we go. We're going to move on to our third application brought by K&E Construction, care of Ed Johnson of 209 Broadway in Hanover, requesting a special permit or finding in accordance with MGL 48, Section 6, and Section 810.2 of the bylaw, any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the raising and reconstruction of a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 4 Bassin Lane in Scituate. Welcome back.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the applicant K&E Construction. We're here seeking a finding in accordance with Mass General Law 48, Section 6, as well as Section 810.2 Scituate zoning bylaw, to allow the raising and reconstruction of a single-family home located at 4 Bassin Lane. Referring you to the plan on the board here, Bassin Lane is on the left-hand side of the page. The property line here is the black bold line. This property does not actually have frontage on Bassin Lane, but it is accessed via a 10-foot wide right-of-way at this location. It fronts on the eastern side of the property on the Atlantic Ocean. This is high up on the cliff overlooking the ocean. The property itself is located in the R3 zoning district. The existing home in this case was built in 1929 and is approximately 1,032 square feet in size. The home complies with zoning setbacks. The non-conformities here, though, are with respect to the lot. The lot is non-conforming with respect to frontage being at 0 and the lot width being at 37 feet where the home was constructed. The proposed site, we would be taking down the existing home, constructing a new one. The new home is 3,134 square feet in size. It's approximately a 203% increase in size. I would note that there are several other homes of similar size and characteristics on Bassins Lane and Gilson Road in immediate vicinity of this property. The new home is a little further to the west on the property, closer to Bassin Lane than the existing house. The proposed house complies with all setbacks for side and rear lot lines. The lot frontage, which is non-conforming, obviously there's no change with the new house. The lot width, because we pulled the house forward on the lot, is in greater compliance. Where it exists today, the home at 37 feet lot width, with our proposed house will provide 41.5 feet of lot width. I turn it over to you for questions.
So, the only thing that jumped out at me here is, so we have it looks like the corner of the home comes right up to, but remains in, well, not right up to, comes within a half foot of the side setback there to the north. And then the extension that we see on the plan into that side setback is a deck which is uncovered.
That's correct.
And That, however, will be a deck at some elevation, is that correct?
Yes.
And what will be located underneath that deck?
Crushed stone surface and sonotubes under the deck. No living space. It's not a roof construction.
Fantastic. So under the bylaw, it would not be required to comply with that 8-foot setback. It was a term we typically use, Bob, I believe would be the drip edge.
Yes, yeah.
So there's no, it's
As
not a
long as the
roof
rain can-
structure.
As long as the rain can get through the deck to the area below, it's not a roof.
There you
So-
go. And then we have, height is always a question when we get here, and I don't actually see that on the application, but obviously, it's safe to assume the plans are that the height of this structure will comply with the bylaw.
They are, the architectural plans are 38.5 feet to the ridge, where 40 feet is allowed, and to the mid-ridge point, or the mid of the roof, we're coming in at approximately 33.5, where 35 feet is allowed.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Please, go ahead.
So the driveway, the access is off of Bassin Lane?
Correct. There's a 10-foot wide legal right-of-way.
My concern with Bassin Lane, and I'm abundantly familiar with it, is how tight the houses are on it. Do we have, I mean, there's no, as long as he meets the setbacks, there's no argument from us, right?
Well, when you say tight, you mean how close to the street?
How close they are to each other and to the street.
Sure, so,
And the fact that that street is about this wide to begin with.
right. So our setbacks would typically, we have a 30-foot front
Right.
setback, which is typically from a street. In this instance, it isn't, but the home complies with a 30-foot front setback, obviously more than that, because we have that sort of private driveway there. And then we have side setbacks, which some feel are somewhat inadequate from time to time, but they are what they are.
Because it's in that R3.
Yeah.
It's those tighter setbacks.
Actually, Bob, 8 feet is all of our zones, is that correct?
No, 15 feet in R2 and R1,
Okay,
8 feet in R3.
okay. So, there we go. But yeah, once they comply with the setback,
The setbacks is kind of
right.
ridiculous.
Arguably, we can look at proximity to setbacks in a totality of the circumstances when other relief is needed. But no, with respect to a specific setback, if it complies with the code, it complies with the code. We will absolutely get to you in one moment, ma'am.
I don't have anything.
Anything else? Bob, anything else to add?
No, not really. I mean, the setbacks, at least in this particular area, as I look at the buildings, seem pretty adequate. The ones along, for instance, Oceanside Drive, if you look at that, that's a much tighter situation than we're facing here. So, no, I think the proposal meets all the requirements of Section 810.2A.
All right. We're going to open it up to the public. Again, just please your name and address for the record once we call on you. Yes, please.
Hi, Maura Maloney. My address is 6 Bassin Lane. I am directly abutting the address in question at 4 Bassin Lane. I would like to describe a little bit the setting for those of you who are not aware. That it is a private dirt lane which has no pavement, it has no water catchment systems. It's very narrow. 2 cars cannot pass each other at the same time. It's about 11 residential lots by my count. My home is also non-conforming, the lot and the home itself, as with all the other houses on Bassin Lane. As far as access to 4 Bassin, as mentioned, it's through my property or a legal deeded right-of-way, 10-foot wide, dirt, no water catchment that goes up to 4 Bassin Lane. My home is right on the corner, so there's 36 inches from the side wall of my house to the dirt right of way that goes up to 4 Bassin. The elevation is 65 feet at 4 Bassin, and it is 40 feet at my property. There's a retaining wall that is the subject of most of my concerns that is on the property of 4 Bassin. It's owned by 4 Bassin, yet it holds up the earth from hitting my east wall of my house, which is 36 inches from the retaining wall. And I did have that confirmed by Mr. Morse in terms of the ownership of that retaining wall. It's 7 feet high. Again, it's holding up the difference in the elevation. And it is in poor condition. It has not been maintained for decades, as far as I can see. So my concerns are, looking at the plans that I had the ability to review so far, they appear to have a lot of missing information, such as the retaining wall. There's a telephone pole that apparently needs to be relocated, and I don't see that on the plans, the telephone pole that supplies electric to 4 Bassin. I would like to see better description of the easements that go through that property. There's one, from my understanding, that goes all the way to the cliff, and then there's another one that goes through the property itself to neighbors. And really my main risk is flood, because I don't see any information on the plans for the grading, drainage. Again, there's no catchments. This retaining wall is in poor shape, and I just want to raise these concerns in front of the board, because I don't think it's obvious by the discussion so far. In terms of the impermeable surfaces, like the home is being increased quite significantly in size. And by just review of the record that I saw, it's at least twice the impermeable surface that the roof would be. And then the driveway, I'm not sure what material that driveway would be made of, but I'm assuming it would also increase the impermeable surfaces and also cause potential flooding risk for my house, which is directly downhill from there. Again, I didn't see anything related to the sensitive environmental location. This is in a, it's bordering, according to the town map, the floodplain and watershed protection district. And I don't know what's been going on with conservation in terms of getting the permits there as well. So again, in my opinion, moving forward with this plan as described would intensify the existing nonconformities, and it would create additional nonconformities from my uneducated, it's not my specialty, but from my basic review of the plans, I would want to make sure that the board considers these concerns of the neighbors.
Sure. So you raised quite a few points there. I think that I've captured them, and I want to try to respond on each. The first being the retaining wall. That's really sounding to me like a private property line issue. And to be honest, if the retaining wall is on your abutter's property and they've been maintaining it thus far, it sounds like for the benefit of your property.
They have not been maintaining.
Well, okay, well, they've been allowing it to continue to exist on their property for the benefit of your property thus far. Sounds like it's been a pretty good deal so far, but the reconstruction of this home, which is set back rather far from that retaining wall, and the arrangement between two property owners on the existence of retaining wall is striking me as a little bit of apples and oranges on that front. In terms of, you mentioned impervious surfaces, and Bob and Greg, you can speak better to this, but I imagine that this change in impervious surfaces and roof area is significant enough where stormwater permit will be necessary.
It's likely that one will be necessary. We have not filed yet with conservation. That will be a separate process. where this would be reviewed with respect to the coastal banks. It would be also reviewed with respect to stormwater. We're not at that stage yet.
So that would speak to stormwater drainage and the environmental impacts that you were referring to. This relief that they need from us in order to build this home as it's laid out does not bless the stormwater drainage or environmental impacts. It is extremely likely, as this process continues, that they will need that review from Concom. You also mentioned a telephone pole needing to be relocated. Is that a telephone pole that is on your property?
No, that telephone pole is located on 4 Bassin Lane, and I'm pointing out the, from the plan that I can see, it just doesn't contain all the detail that I would think you would need.
Sure. So the location of utilities on the property, unless they needed to somehow, to be honest, the location of utilities on a property aren't of concern to this board in approving the location, relocation, or new construction of a home. That's considered a private property owner's issue. If they needed to somehow violate our zoning code and needed some relief from that code for the relocation or maintenance of utilities or the installation of new utilities, that would be of concern. They're not asking for any relief from the code in order to maintain or update their utilities. So, Bob, correct me if I'm wrong, the building department wouldn't allow that if their eventual building plans, which will need to be approved, required that. The department would have them come back to this board if that was necessary. But to be honest, I'm struggling to think of a situation where utilities would require further zoning relief.
I think that's true.
And then you also mentioned two items which are directly under the purview of this board, the intensification of existing nonconformities, and you mentioned the creation of new ones, and that I do want to double back onto. Where would you state that a new nonconformity is being created? Because that's something that's of direct importance to this board.
Yep. So this is based on the rough plan that I was able to review, and it seemed as though it encroached further to the side lot. So I do
Sure.
not have that. If I, again, I'm not in the business, but
Sure.
many do. I am just looking at it from my own eyes.
Of course, and I'm glad that we flushed that out so we can address that directly. So first, the plan, well, it doesn't contain some information that is necessary in a construction project. It is certainly not a rough plan when it comes to the location of the home to be constructed. This is, Greg, I think you would agree, rather exact and up to certain engineering standards in terms of the location. I do recognize the portion of the home that does encroach into the 8-foot setback along the northern property line to the rear of the home as we head towards the ocean. And that's what we discussed earlier, and perhaps I should have done a better job of clarifying it. That is a deck, an open deck off the back of the home that is allowed under the code to proceed actually right up to the property line. Decks that are not roofed do not have to comply with the setbacks in Scituate. Something that comes as a surprise to many residents and even builders from time to time, but they are not required to comply with the setback under the code. All right. Do we have any questions from anyone else on the 4 Bassin Lane application?
Rich McNoney, 1 Bassin Lane. The existing setback, for the existing house, it's in violation, and that's fine. So you put the property lines, I guess I'm missing my words here. But there's a big difference in a small house that's close to a property line and a big house. I just wonder if that house because of the setback is too big for the lot. I mean, Bassin Lane has a whole lot of character, and I just don't think it's consistent with the character of Bassin Lane.
Certainly. So I just want to make sure I understand. I don't believe the existing home is too close to the lot line under the code. It complies with all setbacks, as will the proposed home.
You said though the non-conforming property lines,
There are aspects of the lot that are non-conforming, specifically, help me out
Frontage and
here.
width.
There we go, frontage and lot width. It does not have sufficient frontage along the street, and where this technically only has 10 feet of frontage with its driveway. And then lot width, which is the width of the lot through the home, falls under the requirement of the code. Its proximity to the property line of both the existing home and the proposed home actually do comply with the requirements under the code.
but proximity for a small home has a very different appearance to a large home.
I would absolutely agree with that. However, the code requires any home, regardless of size, to be a certain distance from the property lines. We do not have a variable setback that would be greater for, your point is very well taken, a 1,000 square foot home that is 8 feet from the property line and a 5,000 square foot home that is 8 feet from the property line. The big house is gonna feel a lot closer. I agree, it's a good idea and maybe even something that deserves more discussion. But the fact is, as our code presently exists, if you're 8 feet from the property line, you're in compliance with the
So
code.
the existing home is fully conformant.
That's correct.
But
As
it's non-conformant and grandfathered in. Okay.
the lot, yes, but the existing home and the proposed home are fully compliant as to their dimensions and location on the lot,
Thank you.
of course. Anyone else on Bassin Lane?
There's another question.
Sure, and just while we get to it, I'm sorry, ma'am, just 1 second. If either of you have any questions on some of these questions or my responses, please don't hesitate to chime in. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Kathy Robinson Berry, I'm number 3 Bassin, across from number 6, which is in front of number 4.
Sure.
My concern is, I have a sump pump that runs 365 days a year. And we can be in the drought, we can be in rain, we can have everything, and it runs at least once a day, it will shoot. My concern is water displacement up in the cliff. I know that Mara has 2 sump pumps, and sometimes we help each other out in high water. So my question is the displacement of the drainage from the upper part of the cliff down. I'm on a lower level. And the other question I have is Bassin Lane, if you've ever been down it, very small little lane, and without these trucks driving and swinging across my front lawn and taking out my shrubs and heading up to the back, I question how they're going to get up there. Because I don't want to throw my new shrubs.
I can understand. So I guess first, as to water displacement, I guess my first question, not that it's that, will this house have a basement?
It's a walkout at grade in the front of the house. You're driving into the basement level for a garage. The back of the house, which faces the Atlantic Ocean, does have a below-grade basement in it. So there will be some excavation required for a foundation in this site.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So whether or not it has a basement, is it the weight of the property that will displace water?
I went to the wrong type of schooling to fully answer that question, but I have heard from some folks in my time on this board that went to the right type of schooling. And one of the best explanations I heard was when we're talking about the ocean, and we are when we're talking about water level in your sump pump at this proximity to the Atlantic Ocean, I understand. And also when we're talking about the water table, the effect that this home's basement has on that water table is infinitesimally smaller than a drop in a bucket.
Is there a guarantee?
No, there certainly isn't. But that was the way it was described to me in my time on this board. And it certainly makes sense to me, given the breadth of what we're talking about when we're talking about the water table overall, and the ocean certainly does play a role in that. In terms of drainage and stormwater, there will be, Concom was far more suited to address that. We'll have to address that here, but that really answers the drainage question. It's a common problem in Scituate, it's a common question in Scituate. It's certainly even more common this year, where, for better or worse, we've gotten a lot more rain than we have in a couple of years past, but that's...
Dry summer,
Yep, no, I used to have one of those basements as well. You gotta get those backflow preventers, right? So you don't get the knocking in the walls that we all know.
So I just have one more comment to Mars about the electrical pole.
Sure.
Any truck that is bigger than a FedEx truck pulls the wires down off of those poles every single time. I've called multiple times where the trucks have gone through and there's wire lays across the road, so it is an issue. It's part of the whole situation as well.
Sure. So, construction in any neighborhood is not great. Bob, I believe we have, the bylaw addresses when construction can happen, how it can happen.
Not actually in terms of a single private residence. It's addressed by the planning board when they are permitting a subdivision.
Okay.
However, the public utility, DigSafe, and there are agencies that make sure that power lines don't get taken down willy-nilly, that's for sure. I think that would be certainly a concern, but a concern that is, let's just use the word, so obvious that it would have to be addressed. There would be no way to ignore it without properly addressing it.
Right. All right. Thank you. If anyone else for 4 Bassin? Yes?
Hey, I'm gonna come up and visit you. I have a mask if you'd like me to put it on. I'm John Dinan, I live at 2 Bassin Lane.
Sure.
Which is, I can point it out on the map, to the south of 4 Bassin Lane. And I abut the property. Mr. Morse, you've done surveys of my property for years, actually 2 of them. And land lines are important, as we all know. We're not disputing the land line, but there's a few things. Presently, I have a right-of-way, as you can see. Is it on the map?
Yes, it is.
Okay, could you show it? Okay.
The right-of-way comes up.
Okay, the right-of-way
And then goes 90.
goes to my house. Okay.
Correct. And that's
Okay.
your house.
Okay, so this, and there's a right-of-way all the way up to the cliff, which has been used. Okay? Okay, that's good. Now, this right-of-way, as you can see, goes to my property, which is here. And I hate to point in here. I've been vaccinated. Now, the issue is, it's in land court right now as far as my, I was subpoenaed to go to court in December. And about this property. There's been no resolution of my right-of-way. So presently, if you approve this, how do I get to my house? Okay? Second thing, and as far as the right-of-way during construction. Do I get, what happens to my right-of-way? Okay, part 2. Okay, part 3 and 4, as far as my electrical, and I do have a diagram that's probably can explain, and I'll show you. I didn't have a copy, I don't have a copy machine.
That's all right.
This is where my electrical is, from my house to the pole that the 2 Basin Lane and, no, excuse me, 6 Basin Lane and 3 Basin Lane I talked about,
Sure.
okay?
Yes.
As far as, it's an issue. There's also storage that goes right underneath the house to 8 Basin Lane to Dickinson's house, which is not shown on the map. I mean, can you build a building on top of a sewer line? I don't know. I'm not an engineer.
You certainly can.
You can't, oh, okay, then I,
You can do it very well, and you can do it very
Okay,
poorly.
okay, okay.
So
that, as far as the area, and as far as, I'd like that back, you can look at it, pass it around.
all right.
As far as the area is confined, there's water lines, gas lines cut across everyone's yard.
Sure. So
But no explanation. As far as the,
okay.
this is one issue, and I got a few more.
All right. How do you want to do this? You want to do them one at a time?
I'll do
or-
one at a time.
Okay.
I think it's better for you.
All
Because I
right.
don't want to miss any topics.
So let's start with the right of way, and why don't you, Greg, if you could tell us what you have on the right of way.
So there is absolutely a right-of-way on the property. The right-of-way serves as access for the applicant to get to Bassin Lane. It also serves as access to get to the abutter's property.
So
There's also-
just to pause for 1 second, I'm not playing games here on my phone, I'm looking at satellite, and I see 2 has a driveway out to the south to Gilson. Now that, I'm by no means belittling a right that you have, even if you're not using it, I'm sure the land court's gonna talk to you plenty about that. But just so I understand and have my bearings, it doesn't look like anybody's driving or even walking out to the north and out to Bassin, am I mistaken?
You are mistaken.
Okay.
I've used it twice today.
Okay, that's why I asked.
Oh, no.
So the right-of-way is 10 feet wide. It comes up and then makes a sharp 90-degree turn, which is impossible for any automobile to do.
Sure.
The applicant has petitioned the land court to revise that right-of-way so that it would continue up where it comes up from Bassin Lane, but would actually have a curve to it, which is much more traversable to get to number 2 Bassin Lane. We are aware that there are utilities also within that right-of-way.
Yes.
As well as the right to pass and repass on.
Right.
Those would all be relocated as part of that relocation. That is in front of the land court. It is pending.
Okay.
I mean, how can we go any further? I mean, we haven't resolved this issue.
Well, okay, so
Step back, as far as your satellite, is that live? Was that,
So that's why I was asking
Okay.
questions. I wasn't
Okay.
making any assumptions or any rulings
Okay.
based on Google satellite imagery,
I understand.
which I'm sure is not up to date for various privacy reasons.
yeah?
To answer your question, how we can proceed is this applicant needs many things in order to construct this home. They're likely going to need a permit from Concom. They're going to need a building permit. It sounds to me, and I actually do this for a living, they're going to need a land court ruling. This is one of the things that they need, and our granting of a special permit, if we do that for the location of this home, doesn't have any bearing on their rights to encroach upon your right-of-way. And your right-of-way, which it sounds to me, not having done the title research on this property, includes both a right to pass and repass, and very likely a right to lay and maintain utilities. So that is one thing that they need to accomplish. This is another. And that they accomplish this has absolutely no bearing on that land court case.
Okay, well, you answered that. No one's answered my question.
Of course.
Okay, so we're gonna, that's a moot point as far as you're concerned?
It's a very valid point, but, and I hope that I've helped address it.
Well, as far as you approve this today, and then they have to go further continuation for DOQ, not DEQE, DEP, thank you.
Certainly, I don't know if they need an approval from the DEP, but with the Concom, yes.
Okay, as far as, I'm glad you're sitting beside me because you can verify what I have to say. Okay, now, as far as the issue of the right-of-way has not been resolved, okay? The other issue is the land itself. Now, it's listed, I have drawings back to, and I'm gonna bring this up now, I was gonna bring it up later, when that lot was created in the 80s, okay? And I have a little history here. I grew up at this house in the 50s and 60s, right to the late 60s. My father owned the house, sold it to a porter, and you don't want to hear this history. Anyways, 4 Bassett Lane was moved onto our property, which you can see, I have a print here. It's Loring's 82. There was shift of land. Now, at that point, in 82, was there a variance? Because that was at that point was in need of variance to approve it as a lot. Is that true?
To be honest, I couldn't say. My research of the code hasn't gone back quite that far.
Okay, so I mean, we gotta do a little homework on this. I have, okay? So that's another issue. Do you want to address that right now?
So, sure, the home that exists on the lot today and the creation of the lot, this is before us, and we are of the opinion that this lot, which is non-conforming, pre-exists the code that makes it non-conforming. And it sounds like, and now it looks like you are disagreeing with that.
I truly am.
Okay.
The house was built in 32. It was a Hogsted prefab home in the 30s.
So what I can tell you right now is in 32, this lot was in compliance. Bob, would you agree with me there?
Yes, anything before 1954
really
doesn't have to comply with
almost anything.
Almost any of our zoning regulations.
And, this lot was not created until 82?
I think you need to do a title search.
Well, I have the prints right here. When the house was purchased, when the lines were changed, that was in 82. So at that point in 82, would this not have needed a variance?
In 82, would this have needed a variance to be built? I couldn't say. So you are alleging that this lot with these property lines was created in 1982?
Correct.
To be honest, so give me a second there. I do see this references a 1982 plan. Whether or not that plan created the lot is the next question. I do not have the 1908. I do have the 1982 plan. It does not appear that this lot was created in 1982. This plan does not create the lot. So,
excuse me, as far as creating,
yeah,
the land was there. They changed the lines. Maybe it might terminate. My terms are incorrect.
So the exterior lot lines on this plan.
Can I see the one you're looking at? Or?
Certainly.
Yeah, I don't mind. I've been vaccinated.
They appear to match or actually be less land than we have today. It's tough to match it up, but.
Okay, here. Yeah, let me bring it. This is stamped.
Fantastic. Let me see that.
You can't have it.
Thank you. I got plenty of plans.
No, I know. Okay, here's the lot.
Yeah.
Here's that's 4, this is 2, okay? Here's the lot here, see where we're talking about?
Right? Yes, I do.
Okay, that chunk was taken off of this property and added to this.
Right,
So
what's
is
the
that
date
not
of this
created?
plan?
Anybody?
Right, but so, my point is, this change added more land to this lot, not less. So this change that happened in 1982
Okay.
made a non-conforming lot less non-conforming. If they went the other way in 1982, then they would have been doing something in violation of the code. Here, this looks to me like we had a pre-existing non-conforming lot, and the lot owner gained a little bit more land, making it less non-conforming. You don't lose your grandfathering when you make something less non-conforming.
Okay, so this, what you're saying, and so this lot was not created?
The lot was amended in 1982 according to this plan.
Okay.
But it was amended to add additional land to it, not to create a non-conforming lot.
Okay, so,
It looks as though the non-conforming lot existed prior to that,
okay.
and which would make,
But it looks like it, was there a permit for it? Or you going back to 1950 or 30?
so permits are not related to land, permits are not related to exchanges of land. The permits that we're speaking of, building permits or special
Okay.
permits to allow for building permits, relate to changes in a structure, typically in a residence. Here, we know this home has existed since prior to the imposition of our code.
Okay.
So that's where this property gets its pre-existing non-conforming status.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Morris, why I have it here, here's the edge of the roof. I measured, you can see,
Yep,
the porch is what they consider part of the house. It was a porch at that time. That's fine, they enclosed it. This is 30 feet from the edge of the cliff, okay?
yep,
My calculations, the lot, now this lot was added too. This was a
Yep.
separate lot. That
Yep.
was added,
I
so
saw that.
what you're saying, it was legal to add that?
Yes.
Okay, I understand that. Now, as far as the cliff here, out of the, it's about 12,000. My calculations, 7,100 square feet are over the cliff. So as far as back to the permeation of the water,
yes.
this lot is not as big as it appears to be.
Well,
I mean, when you say 12,000
well,
lots.
you mean the usable area of this lot is not
Usable
as big as it appears to be.
Right.
The lot is exactly as big as it appears to be. That's
Yeah.
that's the land that they own.
Okay, usable, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and so land that is practically usable is not
It's
subject to
not
our
an
code. We have upland, we
Okay.
have wetlands, and
Okay, and I don't
Yeah.
want to mix you up. I know you have multiple issues. Okay, as far as the wall, which I'd like to address, the wall was filled back in the 70s. That wall that 2 Basil Lane talked about, 6
So-
Basil Lane.
yes, so I'm gonna skip ahead on the wall. I feel like you have a few more, and
Yes.
and I want to get to those questions. We really already addressed the wall. It's a private, it's an issue between 2 property owners. It's really not before us, so I'm not sure I want to spend too much time on that again.
Okay, but as far as the fill, that it was filled land, the answer, when you were conversing, the topics weren't brought up. That land was filled land at that point, which created a different water flow, okay? In dynamics of the 6 Basil Lane and the 3 Basil Lane was the water, which, okay. you
Still
don't-
not hearing anything that's really before us tonight.
Okay. So as far as the present house does not have a foundation, it's up on it's not pylons, cinder blocks.
Sure.
Which isn't a problem. As far as that, now the issue of traffic, which we've had traffic up there. There is a bend in the road on Gilson Road. It's very, there is a sign there, no parking anytime. And there's, with the COVID, there's been a lot of walkers, okay?
Okay.
And what we've had, and I own the other lot there, and as far as, I've had people park in my property, construction workers, trucks, without my approval, done damage to my property, and this is part of it. Where are the trucks for this construction? We've already decided that the usable lot is down to roughly 5,000 square feet.
I haven't
Okay.
necessarily decided that, but I see 58 feet between the front property line of this property and the proposed structure.
Okay.
You could build a skyscraper in
Okay.
Manhattan with the property lines. You can
Well,
park quite a
we're
few
not in
construction.
Manhattan.
You can,
Yeah.
my point is,
Yeah.
it can be done.
Okay.
With 58 feet,
Okay.
they can park more than they need to there. Nothing that we're going to potentially approve here tonight is gonna give anyone the rights to park on your property.
Now the issue as far as the wall, I know you've discussed it. Now, it's
You
an L-shaped.
mean the wall I said I didn't wanna talk about anymore?
Right, well, there's
Okay.
two walls. It's an
There's
L-shaped.
another wall.
No,
Where's-
there's two walls, okay?
Okay.
And it butts, and it's retaining wall, support wall for that piece of property.
Yes,
Currently, there's a shed on it.
the shed's going away.
The shed's going away, which is great,
Lovely.
And as far as, now that elevation there, which is 4 foot, down to this sloping driveway, and I hope you don't mind my hands, they're clean.
No, not at all. I'm Italian. I couldn't understand you if you didn't use it.
So as far as, how is my car gonna go over that 4-foot drop? I don't have a.
Your car's not going over it now, right?
It can't, no, because it does, where they're
So
redirecting it.
that's gonna be a question for the land court
Okay,
proceeding.
but with okay, so the question as far as that removal of the wall and the degradation of the wall is the other.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a right-of-way question, which is a very valid question for the land court.
Well, it's not a right of way, it's their property, they can do what they want, but they're gonna disturb the land itself.
But
But
the land that they
again-
can do what they want with?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
they can do what they want,
All right.
but,
What's next on the list?
no, do you have any questions for me?
Not just
No,
yet,
okay.
maybe at the end.
But I'll tell you what.
Yes.
Can I have my sheet back, or do you need?
Yes,
a
you
copy?
can. No, I promised I'd give it back.
So as far as the issue with my electric, when they cut my electric and I don't have electric?
I'm willing to bet they're not going to do that.
Okay, just, good question.
Yes, yeah, it certainly is. It's a valid concern.
Yeah, well, thank you all, and congratulations, both of you. And thank you for listening to me.
Of course.
My wife won't listen to me.
That's all right. I'm always here for you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks.
Do we have anyone else on 4 Bassin Lane? No. Okay. With that, I am going to make a motion that the board grant the special permit request for the raising and reconstruction of, and let me get my bearings here, of the home shown on the plan drawn by Morse Engineering and dated July 15th, 2021. And that the board find that said proposed home does not create any new nonconformities, and that to the extent it intensifies any existing nonconformities, such intensifications are not substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood.
Second.
Before we vote on that, I really should have come back to the board. That was quite a bit of public comment. Did anyone have any additional questions based on any of that discussion, which I admittedly monopolized?
No.
Okay. So all those in... Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm Mark Dickinson, I'm at 8 Gaston Lane.
Yes.
And the only issue that I heard well from Laura and Kathy, more than Kathy, that about the drainage. I know there's some pumps that are going all the time because everybody hears them. And so that really is an issue. And my question is, does this board have the ability to stipulate that in the approval, because I think everything that has been shown tonight is it's not making this more non-conforming. But on the other hand, does who signs off on the drainage system? Because I know in my yard, when I developed a drain 20 years ago, I put a dry well in the front yard, and I used stone on the lower part of my driveway where the rate of runoff is a lot faster. I use crushed stone as opposed to asphalt. So, I mean, it is an issue.
Sure.
And we did it, we addressed it when we did ours. Maybe I can ask Mr. Morris, is that going to be addressed, Greg, at some point in time?
It will be when we deal with the conservation permit.
Okay, that was my question. Okay,
Yeah.
I couldn't remember where we dealt with it, and it made sense to be conservation commission to me. Okay.
That's comes into the stormwater permit.
A little bit more. Thank you.
Absolutely. So on the motion to grant the special permit in accordance with the plan I named, which has been seconded.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 The ayes have it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll take that one. Fellas, we're going to prepare drafts of these decisions. When an applicant has counsel, typically we'll ask counsel to prepare them. We'll prepare them when they don't. Obviously, we have forms for these types of things. We fill in the pertinent information. We send it to Janine. She sends it around, and we ask for everyone to approve them on the board. We'll have a little bit more of a discussion than normal when we do that. You guys can ask any questions you have about the written decisions, which need to be completed within 90 days of the hearing. We really try to do it within a month when we can, when we don't forget. Yeah.
I have a couple to do.
Yeah. All right. There's folks in the hall, please, if you could just take the conversation outside, just so we can keep the doors open, keep the air flowing. And we're gonna move to our fourth application, brought by Christopher and Barbara Horn of 46 Hollitt Street in Scituate, requesting a special permit of finding in accordance with MGL 48, Section 6 and Section 610.2B of the bylaw, and any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the creation of a lot with less than the required 100 feet of frontage at 46 Hollitt Street in Scituate. Hello, Greg.
Good evening. For the record, Brendan Morris from Morris Engineering, representing the property owner and applicant Chris and Barbara Horn. This is the property located at 46 Hollitt Street where they reside. We're here seeking a special permit in accordance with 610.2B of the bylaw, which will allow for the development of a 50-foot frontage lot. The existing site, referring you to the plan, the property line is the black line shown in bold, is constructed with an existing house right here. The lot is in the R2 zoning district, has 164 feet of frontage on Hollitt Street, which is a public street, and consists of 61,396 square feet of land, all of which is upland. There are no wetlands out here, or there are no floodplains on this property. So the proposal is to develop this property with a 50-foot frontage lot. As depicted, this would be the new lot line here. Lot 1 would be the 50-foot frontage lot. It has the minimum of 50 feet of frontage on Hollitt Street and has greater than twice the land area required. Lot 1 would have a total of 41,366 square feet of upland. The existing house would remain on Lot 2. Lot 2 would have 114 feet of frontage and 20,030 square feet of land area. We've made a notation on the plan that development of this property would also be subject to the granting of a common driveway with the Scituate Planning Board. The Lot 2 lot width, after a common driveway is developed for access to Lot 1, allows lot width to be measured depth-wise as you measure it parallel to a common driveway in the case like this. You'll see that we have notes 11 and 12 on the plan referencing both your special permit as well as the planning board's.
So just take me through that one more time. Lot 2 currently has a driveway, and as I see it, and I feel like I'm missing something, doesn't need any relief. What am I missing?
So lot 2, where this is the 20,000-foot zoning district, needs 125 feet of lot width through the house.
125, that's what I'm missing.
So it doesn't have the 125 width through the house parallel to the street. But if we develop extensions of this driveway to access as a common driveway to the rear lot, we now get to measure the lot width parallel to the common driveway. And so that's why you'll see that our lot width is measured actually front to back on this site, and it is in compliance with that.
And the carrot for the planning board in that regard is presumably having one curb cut instead of 2.
Correct.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Less impervious area, one curb cut.
Hopefully they like carrots that day, right? All right, this is, it's mainly for the benefit of our new members. This is a form of application that comes before the board from time to time, a little bit different than our additions or raise and reconstructions. The code actually pretty clearly in 610.2, which is 97 in our new yellow books, allows for this in this situation when we can give some leeway on frontage if we get some leeway on lot area. And then the big kicker is that lot can no longer be further subdivided. That lot is what it is. It stays big. I guess we'll run through quickly the requirements for doing so for the benefit of everyone. Said lot shall have at least 50 feet, shall have a width of at least 50 feet at every point between the frontage along the street and the nearest part of the dwelling to exist on that lot. This lot's going to comply with that, in my view, because it's at least 50 feet in width everywhere. So it wouldn't matter in that regard where you put the dwelling. Any such lot to be created after the effective date of this bylaw should be at least 2 times the required area, which this is. We're at 41,000 and change. When 2 or more so-called 50-foot lots are approved, that section, subsection 2, is not applicable here because we're approving 1. And any lot that receives a special permit under this section may not be further subdivided, and we will, if this is approved, be including that restriction in the special permit, which then that said special permit gets recorded, and then that's on record for everyone to see. And the Board of Appeal, in granting a special permit for the 50-foot lot, may impose such conditions, safeguards, or limitations as it may deem reasonably appropriate. And that's really a question for our discussion. Greg, I don't have any further questions for you. Susan, anything on this?
I don't have anything.
You guys? No questions?
Don't love it, but.
Okay, well, why don't you love it? It's worth discussing.
Oh, I've never been a fan of the common driveway. I think it overdevelops the land that we have. As soon as I saw what they wanted to do, I knew they wanted to put a house back here. I don't think we need it.
Right. So the counter to that, and I understand your point, is we're taking a lot that could potentially be 3 under our code.
Yes.
We're making it 2, always to be 2, can never be 3 now under our code. And there are arguments, in which I've heard the fire department and the police department agree with, that 1 curb cut is better than 2. And then there's the stormwater arguments with impervious area and things like that. So I understand your point as well, and that's sort of the counters to that, which in any given instance, I could see myself siding with one or the other.
Allowed to do it, and,
Yeah.
you know.
Right. No, I totally understand. I think I think sometimes when we have those discussions and understand where everybody's coming from, we all get better for it. So that makes perfect sense. Any questions for you? Bob, please.
This is a little convoluted, and I'll put it to Greg and perhaps also to you, Anthony, as an attorney. By approving Lot 1, you're making Lot 2 non-compliant. In other words, Lot 2 does not meet zoning anymore. My understanding in most, maybe not all cases, you can't subdivide a piece of property such that an existing house remains on a non-compliant lot, or you've created a non-compliant lot on which an existing house exists and remains.
I would tend to agree that, not that we can't do this, but that it creates a little bit more of a tightrope. We have a little chicken and egg.
That's exactly
here.
right.
And also, I think that this,
Before the
at least
horse.
arguably, maybe isn't an A&R plan?
That's correct. The
Yeah.
zoning board does not create lots. They authorize the creation of a lot. When I take this to the planning board will not endorse the A&R plan
Right.
showing a non-compliant zoning issue.
Yeah.
So they're gonna make me go through the special permit process for the common driveway first, prior to creating that lot.
And so I think, to go back and answer your question, you help me here if I go astray, the 50-foot lot is unique, because it comes before us and not the planning board, which is a little bit strange for what you just mentioned. It's the one area where we create lots, but even when we do create them, if the lot that is left was fully compliant, which it isn't here, you would still need to go get an A&R from the planning board. Here, that gets more complicated because of what you just mentioned. The planning board's gonna say, no, we're not going to give you an A&R, and then he's gonna have a separate hearing on moving the common driveway.
Can you explain what A&R is?
Absolutely. A&R is approval not required. It is, I think it's a Mass General law that allows it, and essentially, if you want to create more lots or combine lots, you'd have to go through the subdivision process. The A&R process, the approval not required process, allows you to shortcut that without a public hearing, I believe. If the planning board looks at the plan, which is stamped by an engineer that agrees in the first place, saying, we're creating 2 lots out of 1, but these lots fully comply with your code. The planning board looks at it, agrees, gives you that A&R stamp. You don't have to go through a more formal subdivision proceeding. How'd I do?
That's correct.
All right. Here, that gets more complicated because lot 2 won't comply with width unless.
So your permit in creating a 50-foot frontage lot, I believe, allows for the construction of a house on a lot with 50 feet. It physically doesn't create the lot. So the planning board is the one that creates the lot.
And that doesn't
That doesn't happen.
until the planning board gets through with their business and it's certified and signed off on and registered,
Correct.
filed with the registry.
And then I think our permit and that permit would need to happen in order for you to be in a position to grant a building permit.
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely that.
Yeah. All right, so we're gonna go to the public, and yes, please, sir, and just your name and your address for the record.
Stalls are 34 hour. Could you explain the frontage piece? I didn't quite get that. It was confusing. I mean, it's compliant, but then it's not compliant, and then it could be compliant.
Certainly, so we have lot frontage, the distance at which the lot abuts the street, and then we have lot width, which is the width of the lot through the middle of the home, or at any point within the home?
At any point through the home.
This zone makes it a little more interesting because the required frontage is 100 feet, which we have for lot 2 on this plan. And if we approve, because they have twice the amount of land area, the required frontage will be 50 feet for lot 1. This zone makes it interesting because the lot width is required to be 112 feet. Excuse me, 125 feet. So that's where this gets interesting. Lot 2, as it's proposed here, complies with frontage, but given that there's already a home on it, it can't comply with the current form of lot width. Nowhere within the home is the lot 125 feet wide. The way they plan to overcome that is with a common driveway, which doesn't flip, rotates the orientation of the lot 90 degrees and makes their width compliant if they're able to achieve that. It is a bit of a zoning code curveball.
Can I ask a question just to clarify? They put an angular line on the back of the lot that says 126, but in reality, it's not 126 side by side. It's actually less than 125, is what you're telling me.
That's correct. Yes. Oh,
So is that, it just in my mind, having been here since 1973,
sure.
it looks to me, and don't take this wrong, like a gimmick, because they put it this way and say, okay, we've got plenty of property. Now when I go before the planning board, I can argue.
Sure.
instead of approving the planning board.
I don't take it the wrong way. That's a valid question. But that's not what they're doing, and I think I could tell you why, and I'm certain Greg could tell you why. The reason that lot is angled is because if they made it a right angle, they wouldn't have had 20,000 square feet. That's not a gimmick. They have to have 20,000 square
Well,
feet.
they could have pushed the driveway further up and it still had their square footage.
They could have pushed,
In other words, this side here, which is short,
right.
they could have gone all the way up and made it legitimate.
Right. In my opinion, it doesn't matter where they put the property lines, as long as they have 40,000 on one and 20 on the other, and they are not angling that property line to achieve width. They can't, they acknowledge that they can't. They need relief from the planning board in order to have an acceptable lot width.
And my second question is, this area is a very difficult parking area. I notice on the driveway plan, it says they're going to remove the septic system. This is the septic system of the existing home that's under the driveway, correct?
That is the existing septic system, which is not under a driveway, correct?
Well, it will be when they put the new 50-foot frontage in.
No, they are not planning to put a driveway in that location, but that is still TBD and is really, in my opinion, their problem.
Okay.
A septic system has to comply with all of the regulations a septic system has to comply to
My
with.
point is, been through this many times up in this area.
Sure.
Potentially, if that was the driveway, and I would go on the assumption that that's what I'm being shown, most of the septic systems put in are raised septic systems, significantly raised septic
Sure.
systems. So therefore, there would be another issue of, if you put it there, what do? Or do you move it closer to the house, and what are the rules is how close to the house you get?
They're going to have to comply with all of those rules, is I think the important answer. You are presenting challenges in development. What I can tell you is the returns on development warrant trying to climb the mountains of those challenges, and it's for them to have to deal with, and they are not asking for any bending or breaking of those rules or regulations here tonight.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to figure out, so they're gonna have a.
I'm sorry, just your name and address for the
Of
record,
course.
please.
I'm Joanne Taft, I'm at 74 Brook Street, which is really far from Hollitt, but I have a good reason for asking the question. So they're going to have that 50 feet of road frontage.
Yes.
And then the side, so that I can understand it correctly, the shared driveway is giving them additional road frontage?
No, it wouldn't be giving the lot additional road frontage. It would be giving potentially the lot access from elsewhere.
Okay. So then they're just going to be given permission to have a smaller road frontage than what is necessary?
This section of the code allows for a lot to be created with a smaller,
50 feet.
with 50 feet instead of 100, if the lot contains twice as much land area as is required. So this zone requires 20,000 square feet of lot area to have a buildable lot
Okay,
and 100 feet of frontage.
great.
It also allows for 50 feet of frontage if you have 40,000 square feet of lot area. The idea, one of the ideas, I should say, behind this provision in the code is reducing density. We didn't, the folks who put this section of the code into place felt that we shouldn't be requiring more than 20,000 square feet, but we might be willing to be flexible with frontage if you made a 40,000 square foot lot. The idea is to have larger lots, which creates less density.
Great. Is that fortunate?
Yes, Bob?
Just one more small question, I believe, but Greg, does this, the fact that this existing house is non-conforming in terms of front setback right now, does that throw any kind of a wrinkle into the permitting process?
No, it's a house that was created in 1910. We're not altering the nonconformity. It's been acknowledged that it's nonconforming.
So you wouldn't have to come back to this board, for example, for any reason because of that?
Not for construction or accessing with a common driveway. And right now, there are no intentions to touch that front house. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I think what's important there, to your earlier point about creating a new lot which has some hair on it, is lot 2 and where the lot lines for lot 2 go don't have any effect on that. That, if this was all one lot, that house would still have that exact same nonconformity.
Right, no
Yeah.
question.
One point of information, you said the house was built in 1910, but there's been 2 additions put onto this house. One in the back, one to the side, facing away from the new 50-foot frontage.
Right,
So it is much bigger than what it was in 1910.
right. But the nonconformity existed in the 1910 construction, meaning how close it is to the street.
Okay, up front, okay.
Yeah, and that's,
You don't care about that?
no, in the sense that it fully complies with zoning, so that's why we don't care about the back and when it was built.
So how far does it have to be away from the street today?
30 feet. Or is this, yeah, it's 30 feet, right?
30 feet.
Of course. Yes, sir.
Kevin Fraser, 38 Holland Street. A question, forgive me, this has probably been explained, but I just want to make sure I understand. The common driveway is going to be in the position of the existing driveway on the south side of the property? Or is that is the plan?
It sounds like that's the plan, but here's the rub there is we're not approving the location of the common driveway here tonight. The special permit that I would vote on and that I would make a motion to propose tonight would be our special permit is contingent, and to a certain extent, I think Greg would argue, I don't have to say this because it's contingent on it anyway, is contingent on them getting relief that they need to make lot 2 a conforming lot, which I'm confident, because Greg thinks it's the only way they can make it a conforming lot, is true. They need a common driveway. That's going to be before the planning board. Yes.
Ben Weintraub, 16 Three Road. It's my first time here, and it's this whole process is very, very interesting. But I'm new to this, and the next step as far as location of the house and of the new lot, when does that get determined?
Sure. So that will get determined when they design it and decide to build it, and then they will go for a building permit. But I think an important note for us, and Bob, please add anything that you would like, is there's a dotted line that runs along the exterior, on the inside of the exterior boundary lines of lot 1, which is the pork chop lot we're creating. That's what we typically call the building envelope. those dotted lines are the required setbacks. They are able to put a home really anywhere in the larger portion, because practically no one's gonna put it on the arm of the pork chop there. As long as it is there, and Bob, this is where you should correct me if I'm off, they're not going to run afoul of their building permit for setbacks. There's other aspects of the building permit process.
And the setback
Absolutely.
is how big?
30 feet from the rear property line in this case, 15 feet from the side.
But they can clear all the way to the indoor properties, right?
They can clear in terms of tree cover, vegetation, yes, yeah, to the property line. I'm not sure that would be my choice to do.
Right, the code does not regulate clearing. We don't have a tree ordinance, I don't believe.
Not this town.
Yeah.
Others do.
Others do. Yes, ma'am.
It's me again. So.
Just your name again in case we
Joanne
forgot.
Taft
Thank you.
at, where am I? 74 Brook. If they did not have, if the math did not work out on that street frontage so that they had that 50 feet, would this be able to move forward?
No. No, so in order to pull this off, right, in order to create two lots out of one, in this zone, you'd need to have at least 150 feet of frontage, because you can't make your remaining lot less than 100, and you can't do less than 50 on the new lot. So you need to have 150 feet of frontage, and you need to have 3 times the required lot area. Because you gotta have your 20,000 for the lot that you leave, and you gotta have your 40 for the lot that you create.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes.
Ben Whiterow, 16 Erie Road. If this gets approved, and let's say it just stops here, can the owners then sell that property to someone else?
They could sell the property to someone else whenever they'd
And
like.
it's buildable, and then that party has to go before the board as far as.
They'd have to finish the process, yes, in order to make it buildable. They'd have to go before the planning board. Yes. Yes, sir.
Herb Stells at 34 Rollins. Just clarify this, the dotted line, so is the common drive going to be the existing driveway, or this dotted line 50 foot?
So the applicants indicated that it's probably gonna be the existing driveway, but that's the subject of another hearing. They can change that, they're not promising, they won't. They have to deal with the planning board on that, and they're gonna figure that out with them, yeah.
Wasn't clear right now.
Yeah, that isn't clear yet. This is the first step, and that's probably involved in the second.
This gets approved, and the process, they can do whatever they want, because it's their own.
No, so
The planning board and everyone else says it's okay.
So just to back up on the process for a second, we're going to improve potentially, if we so vote, the creation of the 50-foot lot as a buildable lot. That approval will be pending the planning board granting a common driveway, which will make Lot 2 a viable lot. Lot 1 can't be created unless Lot 2 is a viable lot. Lot 2 can't be created and be a viable lot without a common driveway or without something that we're not thinking of yet.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah. And then, once that process happens, they'll sell or develop Lot 1 or just sit on it, but that's unlikely given everything they're going through to get there. Yes?
I'm Kim Menzel. I live at 15 Three Ring Road, so I'm the house right behind their house.
Sure.
Right now, we have vegetation between us. That's a lot of assuming. This is a language I don't understand, so I've never done anything like this. But
Sure.
I am not in favor of this. We like having distance between our streets, but I would say that, you know, allowing the frontage exception would open up, like, how much development will there be then? If we make an exception for them to have the frontage, then does haul it, just make a whole street in between our streets now, or I just feel nervous about that.
Sure, that question makes a lot of sense. So the answer, I guess the first thing is, it's not an exception. But what you're talking about, an exception, sometimes you'll hear zoning boards use the word variance. That's someone wants to violate the zoning code and they want to tell us extenuating circumstances why they can. This is actually a provision that was put into the code on purpose for landowners to do this, and it was, at least by some, considered a positive. They're gonna make 2 lots out of 1, but they're gonna make a lot that is 40,000 square feet, where only 20 could be required, and when an applicant looks for this under the code, there are some consequences. They can't go back. They can't do something else with the land. This is a 60,000 square foot property, potentially a different process, maybe a little more complicated. They could seek to put in a cul-de-sac and put 3 homes here. So it's actually considered by some, myself included, not the most dense option for 60,000 square feet of land. So that's the answer there. They can't do more. This is, for all intents and purposes, a one and done on this lot. As to the clearing, we all agree we'd love some vegetation between us and our neighbors. That's great, but our neighbors are allowed to plant or not plant what they like on their property.
Absolutely, understood.
Yeah.
Thank you for explaining.
Of course. Anyone else on 46 Hollitt? All right. Given that, any more questions or anything on 46 Hollitt? Thank you. I'm going to make a motion that the board find that the proposed lot 1 on a plan by Morse Engineering dated July 15th, 2021 complies with 610.2 of the zoning bylaw, and the board grant the required special permit pending approval of said plan by the planning board, including whatever other relief the planning board may deem necessary. Does that make sense, Greg?
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So I will take a stab at this one. This one's a little unique, throwing that other one in there, unless you want to.
If you want to do it.
I didn't think you'd be, I
You
didn't
took
think you'd be
3 out of
pushing
4.
me down. That's all
I don't
right.
mind doing it, but if you want to
And then,
And
Greg, we'll have you coordinate with Susan. It might make sense to not rush this one to record if you're gonna get in before the planning board soon, and maybe record them together or whatnot, but I don't know. It's up to you.
Yeah, we likely wouldn't record it at the registry of deeds, but I
Yeah.
imagine the town planner is gonna wanna see a copy.
Oh, of course. Absolutely. I'm gonna, I'll light a fire under myself for this one. Thank you very much. Janine, I think we have to approve some minutes,
June and July. Can we do
but
that?
I don't know that we can. I think we probably need Ed, if that's all right.
No, not Ed.
No, not Ed. George, excuse me.
George.
Yes.
We do need Ed, but.
Yeah, we need George, because these folks can't approve minutes they were here, and since George is still on the board, I think it probably just makes sense to delay that. I apologize, I could see the disappointment in your face. With that, I think that was everything, right?
Did you have some outstanding decisions?
Yes. Would you mind putting those in an email to all of us? And just emailing them out, including public shaming for those who are delayed, and by how long?
Sure.
I think I'm gonna win. I think you might have the most, I might have the most egregious.
I have just last month.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not that.
No need to rub it in.
I'm just saying.
And then maybe we'll make that a regular thing
Yeah.
after each meeting. Doesn't have to be the next day. You'll send out a list and then we'll all nag each other. I think that makes the most sense. All right.
Another thing, I just wanted, and I know it's a couple months away, but this room is booked on the date that we were supposed to have the November meeting.
Yes.
So we can do it via Zoom if you'd like, or I can change the date.
Is the November, we don't know what's on there yet, huh? Okay. I think maybe it'll be a wait and see for a couple of reasons, and recognizing we're still in our hearing here. If a meeting's gonna include something that I know that's gonna be particularly contentious, I wanna try to have a true public hearing if we can. Also, I think we got some COVID variables potentially. Kids are gonna go back to school, we're gonna see what happens. So I think maybe we just wait and see for right now. It's much appreciated, absolutely. All right.
Motion to adjourn, right?
Seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.